The airport was a furnace, bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder in the security line, announcements blaring overhead, and the air conditioning struggling against the July heat. Sweat rolled down my back, my legs heavy as stone, my swollen fingers clutching my boarding pass. I was 25, exhausted after weeks of double shifts, and this trip was supposed to be a tiny chance to breathe. But my parents hadn't invited me to breathe. They had invited me to carry. My sister Lindsay strutted ahead with her designer luggage, chin high, while I dragged 2 extra suitcases behind me, my arms trembling. "Keep up," Dad barked, barely glancing back. "You're holding us up." I'm trying," I muttered, my throat dry as sandpaper. Mom snapped, her voice sharp as glass. "Don't whine. Lindsay can't be late for her flight. If you faint, just crawl. Nobody cares." Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video? Lindsay turned, her smirk painted red with lipstick. "You're so dramatic. It's just heat. Try not to embarrass us in front of security." My head swam. The fluorescent lights blurred. My chest burned like fire, each breath scraping. I staggered, dropping one of the bags. Dad groaned like I'd done it just to annoy him. Worthless. Can't even carry a suitcase without making a scene. "Dad," my voice cracked. I don't feel right." But no one listened. The line inched forward, sweat dripping down my temples. I tried to take a step and the floor tilted beneath me. Black spots exploded across my vision, my knees buckled. The last thing I heard before hitting the ground was Lindsay's voice, high and annoyed. Really? Now? She always ruins everything." I collapsed onto the tile, cheek pressed against the cool floor, my body shaking uncontrollably. Voices swirled around me, passengers gasping, someone calling for help. I blinked up just in time to see them. My parents. Standing a few feet away, Lindsay clinging to her passport, panic flickering across her face. Not for me, but for her flight. Mom's lips curled into a sneer. "She'll be fine. Somebody else can deal with her. We're not missing Lindsay's plane." Dad nodded firmly, pulling Lindsay's arm. "She can rot here for all I care. Move." And they walked, past me, past the people gathering, past the fear in my eyes. My parents, my family, stepped over my near-lifeless body and disappeared into the crowd, clutching Lindsay's passport like it was treasure. Strangers' voices blurred together. "Call medical." "Is she breathing?" "Get water." Hands lifted me gently, someone pressing a bottle to my lips, someone else fanning my face. I wanted to scream after them, to demand why, but the heat swallowed me whole, dragging me into darkness. When I woke again, an oxygen mask covered my face, paramedics kneeling beside me. My throat burned as I tried to speak. One of them said softly, "You're lucky. Heat stroke like that. Another few minutes and it could have been fatal." I closed my eyes, tears sliding silently. My parents hadn't just abandoned me. They had left me to die on a tile floor because my sister's vacation mattered more. And in that sterile haze of pain and betrayal, something inside me shifted. They thought they could walk away and leave me behind. But the next time we met, I wouldn't be the one lying on the ground. When I opened my eyes again, the world was pale and humming with hospital lights. The air smelled of antiseptic, and the steady beep of a heart monitor told me I was still alive. My body ached like it had been wrung out, my throat raw from dehydration. For a moment, I prayed it had all been a nightmare. But then, I saw the IV in my arm, the oxygen tube against my nose, and reality slammed back harder than the tile floor I'd collapsed on. The nurse, a kind woman in her 30s, leaned over with a gentle smile. "You're safe now. Severe heat stroke. We managed to stabilize you. You need rest." I croaked out, "My parents, did anyone?" Her smile faltered. "They left the airport before paramedics even arrived. It was strangers who called for you." My chest tightened. Not surprise, but a familiar ache. Strangers had more humanity than the people who raised me. Hours later, the nurse brought me my bag, salvaged from the chaos. My phone buzzed with messages, not of concern, not apologies, but venom. "Mom, we nearly missed Lindsay's flight because of your pathetic stunt." "Dad, don't call us. You're an embarrassment." "Lindsay, hope you enjoyed the attention. I'm off to Paris. Try not to ruin anything else while I'm gone." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred with tears. Then I turned the phone off. When they finally discharged me, I went back to my tiny apartment. My kids, Hannah and Michael, rushed into my arms. Hannah's small hands touched my face, her eyes wide. "Mommy, are you okay? You look tired." I hugged them tighter, whispering, "I'm okay now." But deep inside, the anger simmered, hotter than the fever that had nearly killed me. Days turned into weeks. My parents boasted about Lindsay's glamorous life abroad, how she was representing the family like a star. They never mentioned me, never asked if I had recovered, never once acknowledged that I had been one breath away from death. Neighbors whispered, though. They'd heard. Word spread about the girl who collapsed at the airport while her parents walked away. People looked at me differently, not with pity, but with quiet outrage. And that's when I realized the truth. My parents' strength wasn't built on love or loyalty. It was built on reputation. They needed people to admire them, to envy their perfect family. Without that, they had nothing. That was the crack I could wedge my hands into. I began planning, slowly, quietly. I threw myself into work, picking up every shift I could. I volunteered at the community center, showing up where my parents never bothered to. I built a network, people who saw me not as the trash daughter, but as someone dependable, someone strong. Meanwhile, I kept my eyes on my parents. They were planning a farewell party for Lindsay's return from Paris, an over-the-top event at the local country club. The invitations went out weeks early, their names printed in bold, dripping with pride. They wanted the whole town there, cameras flashing, champagne flowing. That night would be their throne room, and I would turn it into their collapse. Because they left me to rot on a tile floor while I gasped for air. They thought I was weak, forgettable, invisible. But I had survived, and now I was done crawling. The country club glittered that night, chandeliers throwing gold light over white tablecloths, the smell of champagne and roasted meats hanging in the air. My parents floated through the crowd, Mom dripping in sequins, Dad booming laughter at every guest, Lindsay perched at the center like a queen returning from exile. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dad announced into the microphone, puffing out his chest, "thank you for joining us to celebrate our daughter Lindsay's success abroad. She is the pride of this family, proof of what good breeding and hard work can achieve." Applause thundered, glasses clinked. Mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin, her voice loud enough for half the room to hear. "We raised her right, unlike some people who choose to live in shame." I stood at the back with Hannah and Michael beside me, their small hands gripping mine. My heart pounded, but it wasn't nerves anymore. It was the steady drum of inevitability. I stepped forward, my voice carried over the room. "Funny you should mention shame." The microphone squealed as heads turned. The room hushed. My parents froze, their smiles faltering. "You brag about raising a perfect daughter, but when I collapsed with heat stroke at the airport, gasping on the tile floor, you walked away. You clutched Lindsay's passport, said, 'She can't miss her flight. Let her rot.' And you left me to die." Gasps rippled through the hall, faces twisted in shock, some hands flying to mouths. Dad barked, voice cracking, "She's lying, don't listen to her." But then, little Hannah's voice rang out, clear as a bell. "Grandma told Mommy she was trash. Grandpa said to let her rot. I heard them on the phone." Michael added, his face pale but his chin high, "They don't love us. They never have." The crowd turned on my parents like a wave. Murmurs sharpened into accusations. They left their own daughter? Monsters. Who does that? Lindsay shot to her feet, her smile breaking. "She's jealous. I worked hard for this life." A woman in the front row, a local reporter, her notepad already out, snapped, "Then why are there eyewitnesses from the airport saying strangers had to save her? Why did paramedics confirm she nearly died while her parents disappeared?" My parents' faces drained of color. The walls they had built with pride and polish cracked in front of everyone they wanted to impress. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the tile. Dad's voice roared with rage, but it drowned under the whispers, the disgust, the clicking of phones capturing every second. I took my children's hands and stepped back, my voice steady. You wanted a perfect family to parade around, but the truth has finally landed, and this time you don't get to board a flight and leave it behind. The room erupted, not with applause, but with condemnation. My parents' names, once spoken with envy, now dripped with disgust. Lindsay's glamour dimmed as people turned away from her, their admiration replaced with pity and scorn. I walked out into the night air, the cool breeze washing over me, Hannah and Michael leaning against my sides. For the first time in years, the weight was gone. They had left me to rot on a tile floor. Tonight, I left them rotting in the ruins of their own pride. And I didn't look back. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.